There is a cardinal in your yard right now who has been carrying the same set of small stones in his body for weeks. You have watched him land at your feeder dozens of times. You have seen him pick up seeds, crack them, swallow them, and every single time, those seeds pass through a grinding system built from stones he collected himself. Most people have no idea this is happening. Subscribe to Bird Sense right now. This is exactly the kind of thing we uncover every week, and what those stones are actually doing inside the bird at your feeder. That is what changes everything about how you understand what you are watching every morning. To understand what he is actually doing with those stones, you have to understand what his digestive system was built to handle. Birds do not have teeth. This is not an accident of evolution. Teeth are heavy, and weight is the enemy of flight. What birds evolved instead is a two-chamber stomach system that accomplishes the same function without the weight penalty. The first chamber, the proventriculus, handles chemical digestion, acids and enzymes that begin breaking down food. The second chamber, the gizzard, is where the grinding happens. The gizzard is a muscular organ with walls so thick and powerful that in some species it can crush materials that would defeat a human molar. And inside that gizzard, the cardinal has placed a collection of small stones, grit, that act as the grinding surface, which means the cardinal at your feeder is running a mechanical grinding process inside his body every time he eats from yours. Here is where it gets strange. The stones do not stay forever. They wear down as they grind. They get passed along with everything else. The bird has to replenish them continuously, which means every time you watch a cardinal pecking at the ground near your feeder, it may not be looking for food at all. It may be shopping for the right size and texture of stone to replace the ones that have worn away. The selection process is more deliberate than most people would expect. Research on grit selection in wild songbirds has found that birds actively discriminate between different types of particles when choosing what to swallow. They prefer harder materials, quartz, granite fragments, coarse sand, over softer particles that would wear down too quickly to be useful. They select particles within a specific size range for their body size. Too small and the grit provides insufficient grinding surface. Too large and it cannot be passed when worn smooth. And the cardinal at your feeder has been making these selections since he was weeks old. Young birds learn grit selection partly through observation and partly through trial and error. A bird that chooses poorly, swallowing particles that are too soft, too small, or the wrong shape, digests less efficiently, extracts less nutrition from the same amount of food, and over time falls behind birds that made better selections. The grit in a cardinal's gizzard right now is the result of a lifetime of calibration. Every stone in there was chosen. Every stone was tested against the demands of the seeds he has been eating in your yard specifically. But researchers found something they didn't expect. The type of seed available in an area directly affects what kind of grit birds need. Harder seeds require more aggressive grinding, which wears grit faster, which increases how often the bird needs to find and swallow new stones, which means the sunflower seeds in your feeder, among the harder seeds a cardinal regularly eats, are accelerating the rate at which the bird at your feeder needs to replenish his supply. Your feeder is not just feeding the bird. It is making demands on a system most people never knew existed. There is a seasonal dimension to this that connects directly to what you see in your yard at different times of year. Grit availability changes with the seasons. In winter, snow and ice cover the ground surfaces where birds would normally find suitable particles. Frozen ground traps grit beneath a surface birds cannot access, and cold temperatures slow digestion, which changes the grinding demands on the gizzard system in ways that make adequate grit even more critical, not less. Most people spend years watching birds and never know this is what has been happening beneath every ordinary visit to the feeder. Research on winter bird survival has documented that grit availability is a genuine limiting factor in cold months. Birds that cannot find adequate grit show reduced body condition, even when food is abundant, because they cannot efficiently process what they eat. A feeder full of sunflower seeds is only as useful as the bird's ability to grind and extract nutrition from those seeds, which means the cardinal coming to your feeder on a January morning after a heavy snowfall is facing a specific challenge you have never thought about. The food is there, the grinding system is impaired, and the solution is not more seed. This is where something small that you can actually do becomes significant: coarse sand or fine grit, the kind sold at bird supply stores or available as construction sand, placed in a shallow dish near your feeder, gives the birds in your yard access to something they may not be able to find on their own, particularly in winter. It does not need to be elaborate. A small dish kept clear of snow, filled with coarse particles the birds can select from. The cardinal that has been coming to your feeder through the winter has been managing his gizzard system on whatever he could find. On the days when ground was frozen and snow covered every surface he would normally search, he has been working with whatever worn-down grit remained from before the freeze. A shallow dish of coarse sand placed beside the feeder addresses something real, a gap in the system that your seed alone cannot fill. When you see him pecking through that dish, he is not looking for food. He is maintaining the equipment that makes your food useful to him. He is calibrating the grinding system that has been running since the first seed he ever cracked, and doing it now, in your yard, at something you provided. That is not nothing. The cardinal sorting through grit in your yard has assessed this space as safe enough to perform this kind of maintenance. Here, it is the same assessment that produces the preening sessions, the extended feeder visits, the willingness to hold his ground when you come outside, a vote cast in behavior that something about this yard and the person who maintains it has passed. Whatever threshold he uses to decide where it is safe to be a bird, tell me in the comments, have you ever seen a bird pecking at the ground near your feeder and wondered what it was actually looking for? I want to hear about it. I read every single one. Subscribe to BirdSense. And if you want to understand what else is happening in your yard that most people file under ordinary, that video is right there waiting for you.